Arise, transcend thyself. Thou art man, and the whole nature of man is to become more than himself.
It is a great privilege for me to introduce Sri Shivakumar Ji, who grew up in Kerala among Tamil, Telugu, and Malayalam speaking communities. As he grew up, he was fascinated with science and technology and how they make our lives better. So he started his career with a degree in mechanical engineering and as a computer aided design engineer and worked in the industrial world for 5 years. Very soon, he saw that without the deeper spiritual values, science and technology loses its direction and purpose. So he decided to take a break from work and started engaging himself in full-time study and practice of Indian spirituality, especially the integral yoga of Sri Aurobindo and the Mother. Since 2001, he has been working in the fields of education and youth through Sri Aurobindo Society at Puducherry. He strives to find ways and means of applying spirituality into every aspect of his life. Now I would request Sri Shivakumar Ji to begin the session.
Welcome back. I have a question to ask all of you. Well, morning, we saw about our inner friend and we said we will try to remember and then share something with our inner friend. So when you had your lunch, how many of you remembered your inner friend and offered it to the inner friend? Let me see the hands going up. Honest, huh? Because, well, only today we got to know a little better that friend. We have been trying to befriend him. Palak, how does one offer the food to the inner friend? What did you do?
Today's food was really spicy. So I was like, my tongue was like, it was so spicy. And then I was saying, Mom, it's so spicy. And then I remembered your words that remember that your inner friend is there and you have to offer him it also. So I said like, it's so spicy. कैसे खाऊंगी मैं तो मैं खाना है I was like, being friend with that inner friend and was saying तुम नहीं खा रहे हैं बहुत स्पाइसी है मुझे तो खा नहीं जा रहा so I was like talking to that inner friend very like with the comfortable zone and it was very nice.
That is so nice because no, we have to share the best that we have with our friend. There's no point in giving him too spicy and then probably half cooked the food.
That's sir. I was saying that it's spicy रहने दो आज कल खाना.
Interesting. So Sarthak, how did you share your food?
Sir, so what I did was that when the food was offered today, so we have this tradition that we every time before eating food we do like this around the thali of the food with water and then we invite the divine. So what I did today was like something different with like जब मैंने अपना हाथ ऐसे करके घुमाया प्लेट के चारों तरफ, after that I just said to myself that okay, now I am going to eat food. I want to invite you. Do you want to eat food? Like I did not expect any answer from him. I just thought that he will come and eat food with me. And like Sir Anjali ma'am also says that everything that we do, we need to invite the divine. Yes. And if we invite, there is no point that he will not come. Whenever we invite, he has to come.
Yes. And the inner friend is not a talkative, chatty fellow. No, yes, all the time talking. Yes, so we will have to respect him or her or whatever for whatever he is. But yes, for others, how does one share the food with the inner friend? And sometimes probably we may not be able to share all the time, all the bites that we take while we are eating, we may not be able to share. Sometimes we forget, sometimes the food is so tempting that, well, we want to enjoy it first for ourselves and then suddenly in between. So even if you can remember and offer it, the first bite, even that itself is a nice thing. So the first bite, you prepare it nicely, you mix whatever you have to and take it, the first bite and say, this is for you, and then eat it. Now, you can't just throw the food in your mouth and chew it anyway because it's your inner friend. So you have to consciously put it and chew nicely and completely experience all the tastes of the food and then send it to him finally. This is for you. So you have to consciously eat before you can send it to him. And then that entire thing can be, and if you can, in the beginning stage, maybe the last bite also. So once the first bite, you have shared it with your inner friend, you say, this is for you, and then you ate it. And then you enjoy the food. And then when the last bite comes, that also you prepare it nicely and then say, ye hai na, last bite, this is also for you. And then put it. So at least first bite and the last bite, everybody can do it, isn't it? And in between, whenever you remember, yaad aaya to ek extra, ek bite or de dena. But you cannot give it him without experiencing it, without making it consciously. You put it, you nicely chew it, and then nicely send it down, and then you make a full offering of this, and then it becomes a worthy offering, a beautiful sharing. So this is what we saw. And in the morning, well, we saw that there are a few things, some activities, which actually takes us closer to him. And then we saw the three things which actually takes us much closer. Actually, it makes us so deep that we get in touch with that inner friend. And then the inner friend begins to express himself also through these three things. Which were the three things we saw? What was the first one? Poetry. And then Akshaj has added one more thing, music and dance, both. And then the final one is art. Yeah, Ridhima got all the three, the poetry, music, and art. These things they have a higher vibration. You see, not everything has this higher vibration. So when you read, for example, physics, chemistry, or biology, you don't feel that sense that, oh, you are closer, much closer to. But if they are taught the way they should be, everything can become a means to take us closer. But three things are still, I have to say, it's a little special. And that is why we give so much importance. Sri Aurobindo also calls it as the education for the soul. So we can very quickly get in touch with him. And interestingly, I shared with you, Sri Aurobindo calls himself as first and foremost, I'm a poet. Do you know at what age Sri Aurobindo wrote his first poem? Now, who can guess? Make a guess and then type out. Well, above 40, Sarthak says 15. Oh my God, that young. Somebody says, Atulya says 13 years. Can you write poems at 13 years? Atharva says 25. Jagrati says 11. So some of you here are from the 6th standard, isn't it? And 6th standard means, I don't know, 5th standard or 6th standard onwards. We are having children from grade 5. Grade 5 means what age is their age? 11 years. Sarthak says grade 5 means 11 years. And the answer is also Sri Aurobindo published his first poem when he was 11 years old. 1872 he was born, and 72 plus 11 is 83. 1883, not just wrote, he published. There was a local family magazine, and he published his first poem when he was just 11 years old, which means that all of us here are actually qualified to start, actually, if not write poems, at least to begin with the poem. And when you talk about Sri Aurobindo, he was a very special poet, because from the moment he started writing poetry, he never ever stopped writing it. Even during his very last days, I don't know whether you remember when he left his body, it was 1950. And even in the last days, he used to dictate lines of one very special poem which he was trying to complete. Let me see who knows the name of that poem, which is, I will give you one or two clues, one of the longest poems in English literature in what you call as epic poem.
Sarthak Mishra has said Savitri.
Yes, several. I see. Not only Sarthak, then Saransh also has said, and not bad. Several people have said. Atulya also had said Savitri. Yes. Do you know how many lines were there in that poem? Akshat says he was confused between Rabindranath Tagore. More than 10,000. Can you imagine that many lines in a poem? Well, it takes 2-3 lifetimes for us to even come anywhere close to 10,000. And he named it as Savitri, a legend and a symbol. And this is actually a story from Mahabharata, which he took it up and then put his entire life into this poem. It's in a certain sense. Have you heard of the word Autobiography. You must have heard biography, when people write about somebody's life. Well, so it's called biography. What is autobiography? Autobiography is most authentic. Why? It's not somebody else writing about you, it's you yourself writing about yourself. So you're not going to leave out any details. Yuvraj says correctly, when the author writes his own biography, and then it is called. And Savitri was that. Sri Aurobindo wrote about all the experiences he had and all the beautiful things that he came across. He put it in that one poem, and then he named it as Savitri, which is one of the longest. Imagine 24,000. But other than that, throughout his life, he kept writing poetry. If there is one thing he never stopped doing, it's poetry. Even political work, which was very close to his heart. In 1910, when we was at the peak of the freedom struggle, even that he had to leave it for a while, because he received a command that now time has come for you to leave everything and go to Pondicherry. That's how he came to Pondicherry, because he received a message inside. A message from who? Now from who? From his inner friend. So it said, go to Pondicherry. And then he did not question. He said, if my inner friend ne bol diya hai na, karna hi padega. And then he stopped everything, and then he came to Pondicherry. And that is how the second phase of his life actually started. But even when he stopped the political work, he was very, very popular leader in our freedom struggle. Even when he stopped it, he did not stop writing poetry. I will tell you one more instance. When he was at the peak of his freedom struggle, you all know that how British people were afraid of him, because he used to write so beautifully to all his fellow Indians that we really, really need to take charge of ourselves, and we shouldn't allow somebody else to rule us. So he wrote with such a firepower. Anybody who writes what he wrote caught fire of freedom in them, and the Britishers got very jittery. And then do you know what they called him? They called him as the most dangerous man. For what? If we have to rule India, the most dangerous man we have to encounter with is Sri Aurobindo. And then they wanted to somehow remove him from the political struggle. So they put a false case on him and then put him in jail. And this jail was in a place called Alipur, and it was not any Sada jail where nowadays, if you go to a jail, you get, nice food and you get to chit chat with everybody. And then you can just take a walk, but all within the jail campus, a lot of facilities are there. When he was put in the jail, he was put in solitary confinement. You know what it is? There was just a small room, 4 feet by 5 feet. If you have to look around and imagine, just 4 feet by 5 feet, somewhere around that, very small. And in one corner, he had a stone bed. And then that was that. He was never allowed to come outside this jail also. And this is what we call as the solitary confinement. And he didn't even have a friend to talk to. He was absolutely alone, confined in one place. And this was his situation for almost 1 year. Only when the food time comes, somebody will come, and then through the bars, they will push the plate, and then they will leave. And no talking even at that time. No radio and no lamp. I have actually visited that room, which was in Alipur, which is in West Bengal. And I was amazed that how can anybody stay in this? Nobody to talk to, nobody to interact with. Not even in Corona, at least we are interacting with a few people. This is, you imagine that you are in, what do they call it? Quarantine. This is exactly like that. And that was how Sri Aurobindo went. At that time, now this is why I'm saying is something beautiful happened. Even at that time, he did not stop with his poetry. How? Because in that bare room, he did not even have a paper. He did not have a pen. And yet he was continuing to compose poems. And one such poem, he named it as Invitation, which is what we are going to see today. Now it is an interesting. Now, Well, Shlok says that he found the divine. Very true. He floated in the air. Haan, bahut kuch hua. Lot of things happen. But what I'm going to share with you is this beautiful. And you will come to know what else he was doing, because of which he wrote that poem. He named it as Invitation. I'm going to share that poem with you, but this is the context. Now, he is somebody who is absolutely alone, nothing with him. He is inviting all of us for something. What can such a person invite us to do something? Can anybody guess? Somebody who has nothing with him and he himself gets a little bit of food, and he is inviting, I would say, the whole world. For what? Riddhi has very nicely said, well, you can invite everybody to pray. Like, I am in my jail, so everybody please pray with me. That is one possibility. What else? To look within? Oh, definitely. That you can, because you have nobody else to talk to. But what Sri Aurobindo invited you is to take a walk with him, not in anywhere which you can imagine, but over a mountain and streams and clouds and into the sky. He says, please come with me. Let us go for a cosmic ride, not normal ride, which you and I can, not even an aeroplane ride, because even that stops after some time. He says, come, let's have an experience of the entire cosmos. Now, he is jailed, confined in one single room, hardly 4x5. He is inviting all of us, come with me, let's go for a cosmic ride. How does he do it? This is what we are going to see. It's a most beautiful and phenomenal poem, which I'm going to share with you, and then we are going to read it together. So this is the poem by Sri Aurobindo, titled Invitation, and we are going to see how he is going to invite us, where he is going to invite us, and if we have to join him in this cosmic ride. He's like a cosmic tourist. We need some qualification. What are those qualifications that we need? This is what Sri Aurobindo is going to tell us, and this is very beautiful, 16 lines, and then you have to read with me when I read very slowly. Now, since some of you are from 5th standard to 10th standard, you might come across some difficult words. Now, when you come across a difficult word, well, you can write down the meaning. I will tell you whenever you are stuck with something, and then we are going to read it very, very quietly when we have quietened down. All right, I recite the poem. With wind and the weather beating round me, up to the hill and the moorland I go. What is happening? Where is he? He's not in the jail. He is somewhere where the wind and the weather is beating around him. The wind is not even blowing softly. It's like, coming around him with lot of force. And the weather is also very intense. Probably somewhere like, imagine if you are at the top of the Himalayan mountain, somewhere very close to the Everest top. How will you feel? The wind is going around you with the whoosh sound, and the weather is so intense and cold. And in this harsh weather, he is going up to the hill and the moorland. What is moorland? Well, it is a land with a mushy soil, not a normal hard soil. It's not like a national highway. So you will have to very carefully put your foot. One slip and you are at the bottom of the Everest hill, like that. With wind and the weather beating round me, up to the hill and the moorland I go. Who is going? Sri Aurobindo says, well, I'm already going there. And then he says, who will come with me? Who will climb with me? What a beautiful invitation. Who will come with me? Who will climb with me? Wade through the brook and tramp through the snow. First hint he is giving, there is snow. So it is somewhere really on the Himalayan mountains or somewhere there. Wading through the brook means it's like going through the water. That is called wading. Now, when we walk on a highway, we say, I'm walking. But brook is a small river, almost a stream. So when you're walking in a stream, you walk in a different way. Have you ever walked in a river? It's very different. And it's not like walking on the national highway, and this is very different. So you are wading through the brook, the stream, and tramp. Now, this is when you walk on a, let me see, how many people have walked on snow? Have anybody walked here on snow? Three people have raised their hand. Riddhima has walked. Can you tell us how do you walk on the snow? Is it a plain walking? Riddhima, unmute and then share with us. Where is Riddhima? Kranali also has raised your hand. Kranali, you have walked on snow?
Yes, sir.
So how was it, the walking? Was it easy? You are able to easily walk
No,
and run?
sir. No, sir. So our feet, sir, is just, sir, down to the snow, sir. It's very heavy and difficult to, walk.
So it's a
dangerous kind of a thing also, sir.
Yeah, the moment you put your foot down, half of your foot goes into the snow and gets
Yes,
stuck, isn't it?
Yes, sir.
That is called tramping.
Sir,
Tramp.
so it's
Tramping.
like our feet are sinking inside the snow.
Exactly. If you're not careful, well, it will go in, you will slide, you will get trapped in the snow. So you have to have a very strong steps. You put it with strength and you will have to take it with a lot of strength. And this type of walking is called tramping. So how do you walk in a snow? You tramp through the snow. You get it? So what he says, there are streams, there is a small river, and again you have to walk, you have to wade through the brook, and you have to tramp through the snow. And this is where Sri Aurobindo is inviting. Just to see, with wind and the weather beating round me, up to the hill and the moorland I go. Who will come with me? Who will climb with me? Wade through the brook and tramp through the snow. Okay, so this is where Sri Aurobindo is inviting us to go. And then what does he say? Where is this place? So I'm sometimes, when you go to theme park, people will simulate the scenario of a mountain. They will put artificial snow and all other things are there. So if you think that Sri Aurobindo is in some theme park, well, he is going to tell you otherwise. What does he say? He says, not in the petty circle of cities. I'm not anywhere in your cities. No. I'm not there. Then what he says, cramped by your doors and your walls, I dwell. Where do I dwell? I dwell. Dwell means stay. Where do I stay? Not within the four corners, four walls of your house that I dwell. Not in your petty cities that I dwell. This applies so much to the corona situation, isn't it? What have we been doing for the last 1.5 years? Well, we are almost confined within the doors and walls of our house, isn't it? And in the pity circle, how many of you have actually traveled outside of your city in the last 1.5 years? Let me see who says, oh, Ankit has traveled. Well, lucky people, because all of us are actually cramped by our doors and within the walls. We have been spending almost, I don't know, very close to 1 year or almost 1.5 years. This is my majority of the people have said. And Sri Aurobindo says, no, I'm not there in the city or in a house. Then where is he? He says, I'm in a place where, just imagine, this is a very visual poem. You will have to imagine yourself there and then you get a picture. He says in the next line, over me, God is blue in the welkin. What is welkin? Sky. The place which is above me. So above me, God is blue in the welkin. So he's not inside our houses where above me there is a wall or above me there is a first floor. Or if you are in the first floor, above me is in the second floor. What is there above me? God is blue in the welkin in the sky. So if this is above me, what is around me? against me, the wind and the storm rebel. When you rebel against somebody, you're actually fighting against somebody. That's called a rebellion. So the wind and the storm is rebelling against him. So over me, God is blue in the welkin. Against me, the wind and the storm rebel. Now, we have to picturize ourselves where Sri Aurobindo is inviting us from. We should at least be able to see, oh, this is where Sri Aurobindo is. He is not in the jail, but he is somewhere at the highest point. What is he doing there? I know, now we know that Sri Aurobindo is somewhere there, but what is he doing? And this is what Sri Aurobindo says in the next one. You're asking me what I do? Well, I sport with solitude here in my regions. So I am playing with solitude. Solitude means, in Hindi, I think it's called akelapan. Because he is in such a place that not everybody is a daredevil to go to that place where he is there, where wind and the storm rebel. He is there. I sport, I play with solitude, akelapan, here in my regions. You see, he calls it these things as my region. His region is not the jail in which he is there, but that is his region. And then what happens there? I sport with solitude here in my regions. Of misadventure have made me a friend. What is this misadventure? The misadventure means misfortune. What we call as bad luck, unfavorable circumstances. He says, these difficult circumstances, they've all made me a friend because they found that I am matching with them in my daredevilry. So all these difficult circumstances have made me a dear friend. And then he's asked, my life is such a large life, such a free life. Nothing confines me. And that's what he says. And then he's asking, who would live largely? Who would live freely here to the wind-swept uplands? Ascend. So he's asking Sarthak and Ipshita and Jagrati and everybody, says, ascend people, don't be there in your petty circle of cities, cramped by your doors and your walls. He says, come to the wind-swept uplands, please ascend. And then he says, I can actually invite you because this is my region. When kings are there, they usually say, this is my kingdom, my country. In the same way, Sri Aurobindo says that I am the Lord of tempest and mountain. He says, I am the king of this storm and mountain. They obey me, not I obey them. And then he says, I am the spirit of freedom and pride. I'm so free. I can do what I want. I can take a walk. I can fly. Yes. And then he says, I have given you an invitation here to the wind-swept uplands, ascend. But there is a qualification. Not anybody and everybody can join me. If you want to join me, here is a qualification. What is the qualification? Stark must he be and a kinsman to danger. Stark matlab kya hai? Intense. Not a plain, boring, weak person. No, I don't want to invite such people. He must be stark, intense in his energies. Stark must he be. And kaisa aadmi hai? Kinsman to danger. Kinsman matlab relative. क्या बोलते हैं relative को हिंदी में? बंधुजन. Kinsman to danger. So you must have made danger your bandhujan, which means that how brave you should be if you can say that danger hai na, wo mera bhai hi hai. Like that. So 2 qualifications. Samriddhi has raised her hand, but we will get to Samriddhi Shukla. He says, if you want to come with me, stark must he be, intense hona chahiye. And then kinsman to danger. So danger ka bhai ben hona chahiye. And such people only can share my kingdom and walk at my side. All right. So who put up a hand. You can unmute. What would you like to? Rishtedar. Oh, Arav Kumar says that kinsman means Rishtedar. In my very colloquial Hindi, I said Bandhujan, but Rishtedar. So, who would like to ask anything about? Well, who is here ready to accept the invitation? This is the invitation. What is the qualification? If you have to be accepted by Sri Aurobindo, last two lines, stark must he be, बहुत intense होना चाहिए, and kinsman to danger, ओ danger का रिश्तेदार होना चाहिए, who shares my kingdom and walks at my side. Now this is the invitation that we have from Sri Aurobindo. Now, whenever we read a poem, it's not enough if we simply understand all the words and its meaning and the context. We must get a vision of the poem, which will give us almost an experience of what Sri Aurobindo is asking us to. How do we do that? Well, I'm going to help you to get a vision of the poem and experience a little bit of what we want to do. How and what are we going to do now? We are going to become more familiar with the poem, for which I'm going to ask you to pick up your paper and pen, and I'm going to give you probably 7 minutes, and I'm going to request you to write down this poem in silence. I will play some music, apne haath se, not taking a snapshot, but apne haath se, write down the invitation poem, and then we will see what we can do with it. I think almost everybody has completed it. Now, how can we make the poem a little more familiar? Well, I read it out for you. Now it is your turn to read it for yourself. And everybody is already muted, so our reading will not clash with anybody else's. I'm going to ask you to start. When I say start, you have the poem which you have written, and then you have to read it a little loudly and without disturbing anybody else who is in your home, but you have to read it for yourself. So everybody has their own speed of reading. Somebody will read it a little fast, somebody will read it a little slow, but you have to get into the poem of Sri Aurobindo. What he feels, well, we have to feel it. All right, get ready. Start. Read loudly for yourself. Now, when you read, the poem has become yours. When I was reading and explaining, it's more like my poem and then it's closed. When you have written it with your own hands, and then when you have read it for yourself, now the poem is as much as yours as it is mine. What do we do next? If you observe when you read it, and of course, if there are any difficult words, you can always underline and write their meaning against it. For example, the word welkin is a little difficult, moorland is a little difficult, and anything else a little difficult. So whenever a difficult word comes, you can always underline and write the meaning next to it. What do we do now? When we look at the poem, there are some lines which you intuitively feel very close. The spirit in which Sri Aurobindo says, for example, you should be a kinsman to danger, or something like that. There are always a few lines which you intuitively feel so much one with it. So in the next probably 3 minutes, you are going to read it silently, not loud this time, silently. And whichever phrase or line which appeals to you most, well, you put a nice underline over it. And then see whether the poem communicates to you. Petit means very small. Yes, definitely you can underline more than one phrase. Sometimes if you look at my book, I think most of the lines are underlined actually, because every time I read it, I find one more line very appealing to me. So I write it. And next time I read it, I put one more underline. But right now, what is the line that speaks to you most, which resonates with you the most intuitively? Already the favorite lines are getting shared. So Anjalji says, who would live largely? Who would live freely? उसको क्या बोलते हैं हिंदी में? बिंदास, ऐसा कुछ शब्द है ना? Yes, freely, carefree. So Riddhi Kalra says, I am the spirit of freedom and pride, because I'm not some sada admi who has nothing to be proud of. I am. And well, Anjali has a second line also. And Shashwat has another nice line. Well, over me, God is blue in the sky, in the welkin. And Atharva says, I sport, meaning I play with solitude here in my region. And Sarthak says, well, over me, God is blue in the welkin. Against me, the wind and the storm rebel. Riddhima Rana says, I am the lord of tempest and mountain. मैं एक राजा हूँ. कौन सा राजा? I'm a raja of the storms and mountains, which are most difficult to face. And Sarthak says, with the wind and the weather beating around me. Sarthak, I think you must be somebody who has gone for a mountain trek, because to feel the wind and the wind whooshing around one and the weather being very, very difficult, almost beating one, that is how sharp the weather can be. Up to the hill and the moorland I go. Akshat says, when the poet talk about the weather and up the hills and moorland, ask people to come with him. वो तो है, but you have to underline the one that speaks to you, because some lines actually will tell you, will call you, will invite you. These are the lines that we are. Again, Palak Bhandari says, not in the petty circle of cities. I think you must have got confined for too long. Petty means small, chota sa, very insignificant. So I don't belong there. I'm a free bird, bolte hai na? I'm a free spirit. And stark must he be, very beautiful. Now, how do we approach the poem? Once we have the poem, slowly as it enters into it, finally something emerges out of the poem. We have gone through all the details. We have seen from where Sri Aurobindo is inviting us and what is the qualification. Beyond all these things, as the poem becomes yours, something emerges out of the poem. What is it? Well, we will have to ask Sri Aurobindo only to tell us. No, this is a very spiritual poem, because do you think he is physically there at the top of the mountain? No, he is in the jail. And do you know that in the jail, when the poem came to him, he couldn't even write it. He committed it to his memory. And then after several months, after coming out of the jail, then he wrote it down and then he shared it with me. That was the beauty of it. But this poem, it's a spiritual poem. He experienced it really within himself, and not physically, but inwardly. So we call that as a mystical poem, not physical poem with physical reality, but mystical poem, meaning spiritual poem. So what does Sri Aurobindo says? It's very interesting. So what does this mystic poem do to us? A mystic poem, Sri Aurobindo says, may explain itself, or a general idea may emerge from it. Now this has happened to all of us, isn't it? Well, the poem has been explained. We know what it is there. And you get a general idea. Somebody who is physically confined is inwardly so free. This is the idea emergent in it. But these are not the most important things. Sri Aurobindo says, it is the vision that is important. Vision means what? Not something we see with our normal eye, but something we live inwardly is what we call as vision. So he says, it is the vision that is important. Suddenly a kind of a picture, a vision emerges, and that is the most important thing. Or you can say, Sri Aurobindo says, or what one can get from it by intuitive feeling. कुछ महसूस होता है when you read it. Well, you capture the spirit in which Sri Aurobindo says that I am the king of tempest, lord of tempest and mountain. You get that experience. Intuitively you feel, not the explanation or the idea that much. So what you get is a vision. And we are going to capture this vision and express it on the paper. So I'm going to request all of you to bring your color pencils and sketch pens, pick up a paper, and then you are going to spend with the poem quietly a few minutes and then see what emerges out of it, what vision comes out of it. It could be anything. It could be some colors or some images, or somebody will feel like words coming. Even that also you can write it down. So what comes out of you, put it down on paper, pick up your color pencils, sketches, and your time is next 10 minutes. Just live that poem and express it. Yes, Shashwat?
So, sir, can this be also classified as an hallucination? Because many people in solitary confinement lose their senses.
Well,
no offense, no offense.
So there are two things. Suppose not only this, suppose some people who take drugs, they
Yes,
also see something which is not there. But when you observe the people who are drugged, they are very dull. Once the effect of the drug has gone down, that person is usually a wreck. Have you seen how the people who take drugs look? There was, I don't know, Shahid Kapoor's, some movie was also recently there, no? He takes a lot of drugs.
Kabir Singh.
You see the condition of these people? So
Yes.
that is one type. And he can even hallucinate what is not there. But what happens to a person who is very, very conscious on the inside? And in that consciousness, when he experiences something, it is an inner experience which is very real. For example, Shashwat, have you ever become angry or irritated with somebody?
Sir, always.
Always. Oh my God. So if somebody comes and tells you that I don't believe that you are angry, can you show me you are angry? Your anger? Can you show it to him?
Yes, sir, by destroying stuff.
No. By destroying, you are exhibiting an expression of anger, but you're not showing the anger. Correct?
Yes, sir.
Because you could have destroyed something, you could have shouted something. All these are expressions of anger. But can you show anger? Itna gussa hoon, dekho. Can you show?
No, sir.
So suppose if the other person says that, dikha nahi sakte, you are hallucinating anger. What will be your reply? Just imagine, Shashwat, when you are really gussa mein ho, somebody comes and says that, Arey, your anger is a hallucination and wants to go away. Tum kya karoge? मैं express कर सकता हूँ. I feel it. I so intensely feel it. It cannot be hallucination. Why? मैं anger के साथ एक हूँ. One with it. So this experience of Sri Aurobindo goes beyond that. He is intensely living it. It's real. Like somebody comes and says that, hey, your anger is not real. You will not agree, isn't it? So when
Yes.
somebody is very conscious, one can have the real experience on the inside. So that is the difference between hallucination, which is drugs. When one is not okay, you get hallucination. When you are okay on the inside, you get mystic experience. Usko spiritual experience bhi bolte hain. हाँ Saransh.
Every child is not on drugs, sir, but I have experienced that some kind of like mystical thing. So is it a good sign for me or is it just a hallucination?
So actually what happens, if you actually spend a little time with artistic people, do you have an art teacher?
Yes, sir.
Have you ever seen the art teacher, doing something? Do you do artwork, sketching, painting, Sarthak?
Sir, I'm not good in art, sir.
Okay, so this is good example. When you and I do the artwork, we have to think, we'll have to put one stroke, we have to erase it. But when an artist does it, it's already he's seeing precisely the flow of every stroke, and then he's as if looking at it and drawing. So if you find actually an artist teacher drawing something, she will go like this, as if she is copying something which she is seeing. So this is an inner eye, which have to be trained. So you're seeing something, is it good or not? Well, we can't say. If you train, it becomes something beautiful. If you neglect it, if you are very unconsciously, chalo, kuch ho raha hai, if you treat it like that, then it is not a good thing. So you can make it good by developing it. So Saransh, कुछ पूछना चाहते हो?
Thank you, sir.
Sir, where Sri Aurobindo is inviting us, for what motive is he there?
Suppose it's a very nice feeling, let us say in your classroom, Saransh, suppose somebody is gifting you a fantastic toy. I don't know, the latest, most fabulous, I don't know, some video games, or what do you like most, Saransh?
Sir, spiritual books.
Okay, spiritual reading. So you got a nice book. After reading it, you are so full of it. Arey, itna acha book. What do you do after reading it? You are so happy. Would you like to share your happiness with others?
Yes, sir.
For example, somebody else, they heard a fabulous song, A.R. Rahman ka wo latest hai na, oh, itna acha tha. What do? Immediately you put it in your mobile phone, sending it to your friends. Arey, dekho, dekho, dekho. You want to share it, isn't it?
Yes, sir.
Now imagine Sri Aurobindo, he is feeling himself as the Lord of tempest and mountain, and he is so free. In that freedom, such a joyous experience. And he being he wants all of us to join him and experience the same happiness, the same adventure which he is going through. Such a lovely thing.
So, sir, is he inviting us in his spiritual journey?
Absolutely. And is it possible? If he is somewhere and we are somewhere, is it possible? Of course. Look where he is. He is in a jail and he is going for a cosmic ride. Now, when we read this poem, even now, see, when did he had this experience? 100 years back, more than that. Can we now join? Do we have to go back in time? No, we don't have to go back in time because his poem has time traveled and then came to us now. And therefore, right now, we can actually, through the poem, get the same experience. In this Corona time, how much we are cramped in the walls of cities, how much we are feeling so suffocated. And through this poem, inwardly, we can actually have an experience of freedom and joy. Only not everybody is inviting. Well, if you are a kinsman to danger, well, बोल सकते हो ये danger का क्या हिंदी शब्द होता है? खतरा.
Sir, but what type of danger is he pointing to?
See, when you are at the top of the mountain, when storm is brewing around you, when there is no one false step, you are gone. And just look at the people who are true adventurers. Well, they love such an adventure. They love doing things out of this world, something which is so challenging. Not that, you take a walk where there is no danger on a highway and with all the protection, no thrill in it, no joy in it. This poem is for people who are adventuristic in nature. And there is such a joy when you actually reach, for example, people who climb Mount Everest, they're actually torturing themselves. Why do they have to suffer? Well, it's not suffering. Every step that they take is a step of joy. When they exceed their limits, normal limits, there is always a joy. Remember it always. Every time you exceed your capacity, you become a little more than who you are. You are normal, and when you become more than you are, there is a tremendous joy and a feeling of contentment associated with it. Like in sports, why do you have to sweat yourself to run 100 meters dam laga ke? Kyun itna torture karna hai? When you exceed your normal capacity, there is a sense of achievement. So here Sri Aurobindo is asking us to come out of our limitation and have that sense of adventure and joy and whatnot. Each one of you will have to decide. All right? So you have to now feel whatever comes, you express it on paper, and then I'll be happy if you could take snapshots and share it. Yes, Anjali ji, you want to share something?
Yeah, so Saransh's question, you've answered so beautifully. Saransh, when he was in the jail, of course, tomorrow I'm going to be speaking about it. But when Sri Aurobindo was in the jail, Swami Vivekananda came to him. Swami Vivekananda had left his body years before that. But he came to him for 14 days. And he spoke to him about the power of intuition, the higher and higher levels of mind. And it is that learning that he got from Swami Vivekananda, which became a gateway for him to reach the peak of his journey to the supermind, right? So he is asking us, here to the windswept uplands ascend, that path of evolution that we keep talking about. The man is not a transitional being. Man is a transitional being. He is not final. So he's asking us, are you ready to ascend with me? Are you ready to go through that transition? And every transition will go through some certain pains, certain difficulties. And those are the difficulties of evolution. He's saying, are you ready to make that climb and take the dangers of the climb? And remember yesterday how nicely somebody had asked the question, how do we become vaster? And Shivakumar Ji had explained so beautifully. So here in this line, he's saying, who would live largely? Who would live beyond himself? Break the boundaries of me, mine. And who would live largely? Who would live freely? We live under so many silly bondages. Who would live freely? Here to the windswept uplands ascend. He's talking about the ascension of evolution. All right, Saransh? What is the danger in the evolution? The danger, because you have taken a pran, you've taken a vow that you're going to reach there, whatever be the problem. You're not going to take the easy path, you're going to take the path less traveled. So then these are the dangers. They are difficult roads to tread, right? Shivakumar Ji?
Well, absolutely. Anything where you will have to become more than what you are, it is not something which is a traveled path. It is a less traveled path because you have not yet become who you want to be. And everything is going to surprise you, probably even shock you. You will have to maneuver yourself in the right way if you're not careful enough, if you're not sincere enough. If you get tempted by somebody who is showing you, hey, don't go there, come here, there is something which is very nice and comfortable, comfy, don't go there. If you get diverted, all these are dangers. There are so many temptations will come to take you away. And somebody will come and say that, hey, I'm going to give you 1 crore rupees. You come, don't go there. You come and then work with me. Let's have some little masti. You'll have to be careful. You'll have to look into it. Oh, temptation is coming. And you have to be very careful. Lot of any adventure actually involves all these things, and you will have to overcome them.
That reminds me of a beautiful book by Satprem. You can write it down, children. Later in life, you can read it. Adventure of Consciousness. Such a beautiful book by Satprem. Explains the entire philosophy of Sri Aurobindo in the simplest terms. Adventure of Consciousness by Satprem.
So I'm hoping that already you are expressing your vision, what you have felt, kya mehsoos hua, and what this poem communicated to you, what Sri Aurobindo has communicated to you. Just express it in paper. All right. And if all of you can put up what you have finished against the camera, I will make an attempt to see whether I can make out. It's very difficult. Sarthak. Oh, here to the uplands, windswept moorlands, uphill seas. That is probably the sketch. Yes, Ridhima Rana is beautiful. And Akshaj, can you hold it little steady? Very nice, actually. And Sanskar, very colorful. Sanskar is on a space trip, probably. And Riddhi Kalra, beautiful. Krinali, wonderful.
Gorgeous.
And she has written her favorite line. Oh, the entire poem is also there. Sometimes if you feel like it, you can write your favorite lines also. You have highlighted your favorite phrases, isn't
Very
it?
Very nice.
Hinshika, oh, lovely. And I think so many people are joining Sri Aurobindo, probably, or something at the bottom of the mountain. Over me, the God is in the welkin. That's so nicely is there, and the mountains, very beautiful. Very nice, Nandini. It's very difficult to go through everybody's, but if you have imbibed the spirit of the poem, and if you spend more time with it, you actually at some point get even into an experience. Who knows? Probably tonight when you are sleeping, when you get a dream, you will be with Sri Aurobindo somewhere there. We don't know what and how it is going to happen. Okay, Ridhima and Palak wants to share something. So first, Palak, go.
Sir, actually, in the break time when the session was ended, I wrote a poem. Actually, I was thinking, yes, sir. Yes, sir, in Hindi, but it is. Actually, I'm comfortable writing in Hindi poems.
Read it out.
जीवन को समझना और जानना बहुत जरूरी है। प्रयत्न किया मैंने अपने आप को जानने का, फिर समझा जीवन तो सरल नहीं, परंतु हमारा मन भी उससे कुछ कम नहीं। तितली की तरह उस पेड़ से इस पेड़ बैठता रहता है। तितली की तरह उस पेड़ से इस पेड़ हमारा मन बैठता रहता है। मन ही उड़ता है, विचलित करता है, मन ही शांत है और मन ही चंचल हो जाता है। मन के हारे हार है, मन के जीते जीत है। मन के हारे हार है, मन के जीते जीत है। धन्यवाद।
Beautiful. Really beautiful.
You see, when we write poetry, it's not a sada baat nahi. It's an intenser form of expression. And it comes to us whenever we are inspired, a poem visits us. And we have to quickly write it down. And we have to be very calm and quiet and capture the complete poem and then write it down. Then it will be a beautiful poem. So we come to the end of our third session. Well, we have covered a lot of track. We started our journey asking ourselves, should we have an aim in life? And then, well, Mother also agreed, almost all of you agreed that we should have an aim, but we were not clear about what type of an aim. And then the Mother said, well, it has to be high and wide. And how do we make it wide? It has to be generous and disinterested. Matlab, self-interest kam hona chahiye. And then we entered into how do we make our aim like wide and then disinterested and generous. We saw the secret of generosity. It opens the doors of the universe. The more we give, actually, the more we get. That is the secret of generosity. And then what did we see today? We saw that all the outer aims, and I want to be a big engineer, big doctor, big educationist, I want to build a school. They are all outside, which is only part of our aim, and that has to match with what is there within us. There is an outer stream and there is an inner stream. And then we saw that when we look at ourselves, there are two types of things. One, we are picked up by looking at, I don't know, all the film stars and anything that impresses, we have picked up some habits and tendencies. Now, we shouldn't give too much importance. We are already born with some capacities, some tendencies, kuch chahat, kuch icha, all that is there inborn. That is actually coming from the real me, because my real me is already born with everything that I need for this life to be the best it can be. There are million things in this world, million capacities. I don't want all the capacities. Nobody can have all the capacities, all the talents. But what I need for my life, completely 100% I'm born with it. And that part which has this is what we call as the inner friend. Then unse mulaqat hua ya nahi? Inner friend say, andar ka Hanuman. And the genius inside, as Mother says, the psychic being. So usse mulaqat hua, familiarity hua, and then we also understood, and then we also found how do we get in touch with this person. And we saw 2-3 techniques. One, remember and offer. Second one, through art, music, poetry. And in general, just wanting to be in touch with it, kaam ho jayega. We call it as aspiration. Wanting to be the BFF of this inner friend itself has come out. So we have 2 more minutes. If anybody would like to ask anything, we have Aditya and Saransh. So we'll start with Aditya.
Sir, in the long run for our life, what is better? Having a very high goal which is achievable but very far-fetched and will take a lot of time or efforts, or having small and easily achievable aims which we can just treat as hoops on a ladder?
By itself, neither of them is good or bad. Neither of them is what we have to choose. Neither has any advantage. The question that we have to ask is, for me, which one should I choose? One thing is a general question. You are like asking for everybody, sir, what do you think people should choose? Something which is long and then more difficult, or something which is short but gives us a great choice. This is a common janta ka question. We are not worried about common janta. I want to know what should be my goal, because for me, I have been over several births, and right now I have taken a birth. Probably in my previous life, I would have taken some short goals and then probably experienced a variety of things. This birth, maybe I want to select something which is very high, most difficult, but also most adventurous. Itna mehnat karne ke liye ichha aa gaya. So maybe that is your, or in the previous life, you would have selected that long thing. Maybe this time you want to have an aim which has like 100 things, which is part of it. So the question is not what is good for the common janta, what is it for me? And that, who knows? Saransh's inner friend will tell you, or Ridhima's inner friend will tell you. Whose inner friend will tell you, Aditya?
Still mine.
You are. So janta, let them do. Each one will have his own agenda. Let them do. But there is nothing common or general we can say, this is what everybody should say. All that you can say is, for me, I have to discover for myself. ये मेरा discovery है, मेरा life है. I have to see how best I can make my life to be. Saransh?
Sir, I wanted to ask that the mother and Sri Aurobindo both emphasized poem, art, and dancing as one of the ways to connect with the inner friend. So, sir, through poems, we'll connect then when they are dedicated. Like this poem was dedicated to the inner friend only, the psychic being or the Lord Himself. So, sir, when those poems will be spiritual, then we'll get more connected, no?
In a certain sense, what I say, the higher vibration, the more refined they are, the more they are of a very high vibration, then it is easier for us to get connected with it and respond from that space. So it puts us directly in touch with. You write a poem about, for example, the cake you ate. वो पढ़ के कितना एक्सपीरियंस मिलेगा? वो केक का जो है वो मिलेगा. But if you want to go beyond, then suppose if you are coming across a poem by Rabindranath Tagore, like somebody said, where there is no fear, well, utna experience milega. Or you read Sri Aurobindo's poem, well, utna experience milega. Well, it is up to each one of us to. So we can't even say only the spiritual poem is the best. But from where I am, if it can take me one more step closer, well, I will start from there. Because there are so many people who have not even interested in poetry. Well, start with some poetry which will open you up, which will take one step closer. Read a poetry about eating a cake, probably going to a zoo, and gradually open up, and then you get ready for opening up to this really deep poems that carry higher vibration. So you cannot even go and tell everybody that no, spiritual poem is the best poem. You have to read only that. No, for each one, maybe a poem on dance, on music, anything that takes me a little closer is fine, because this is a journey, and this is not only a high journey but a wide journey. There are so many different topics through which we can enter, not only spiritual poem, but spiritual poem, one has to get ready for that because it carries very high vibration. Yes, Ridhima, आज बहुत बोल दिया है ना? You've been talking from morning.
Sir, actually, you were the person who inspired me to write like poems, because in your previous last year session you talked a lot about poems and music. So you gave an example that if there's a rose and you have to write a poem about it, what will you write? Like those things inspired me to write my poems.
Absolutely. You see, Saransh, how even a rose will help us to open up. And actually speaking, you will think that rose is a normal topic. If you can actually get connected with the rose, the symmetry, the geometry, the beauty, the color, the form, the shape, the life energy, and if you still go deeper, you'll find that the whole of nature is expressing itself as a smile in a flower, and you get connected to the entire nature, and beyond the nature, well, you can get connected to something so deep. So in a certain sense, even the normal things, if you connect so deep, it's something else altogether. So we will.
Kinali has sent me this beautiful artwork that she did a week back or something. Just see how beautiful it is.
Lovely.
She said this artwork reminded me of this poem, Invitation, that Shivakumar Ji.
See, all of us have different ways of expressing it. Not only art, you can even write something, even through a dance. This invitation, oh, I choreographed this poem with one whole group of children, where through action, we actually went through line by line, and the entire group did the entire choreography. It's a very beautiful poem when you want to express itself. So express it in whatever way you can. Yeah, Samriddhi.
So my question is that how to become a person that anybody would like to go on with the adventure that Sri Aurobindo has been talking about in his poem. So how to become that person who is not materialistic, but who believes in more than anything materialistic.
This is a very, very deep and very valid question. So how do I become that person? मैं क्या बोलना चाहता हूँ कि you are already that person on the inside. You see, we don't have to become something other than who we are. Actually, right now, we are living some other life, not actually our own life. Because the way we are brought up, the way family wants us to live, the way probably the outside education and society has shaped us, we are actually not living our own life, not yet. हमारा जो real person है ना, is yet to come out and live his life. So we have not yet been ourselves. And to be ourselves, well, you just have to make an effort to make this inner friend come, and gradually you will find that you are living your own life. So you don't have to become anything. You don't even have to think, because it's already that within. So all the adventurous spirit you need is there within you. That's why Sri Aurobindo said, and first thing he said to all the teachers and all of us is, first thing about education is that nothing can be taught. You can't teach somebody to become somebody else. All that you can do is help the person to become what he is already on the inside. Can we end with one quote from Sri Aurobindo? Sri Aurobindo, what does he say about poetry? Who creates the poetry? Anybody can create poetry. Anybody can write about anything as a verse. But true poetry, he says, the true creator and the true hearer is the soul. Now that is real poetry. What creates is also the soul, and who can hear it and truly resonate with that poem is also the soul in other people. Like Sri Aurobindo from his soul created a poem. In order to experience it, we will have to hear it from the soul. And then he says, the more directly the word reaches and sinks deep into the soul, the greater the poetry. How Sri Aurobindo's poem reached out to us and sank deep into ourselves, we could almost feel when he's inviting us from that place. Then he say, greater the poetry.
Truly grateful, Shivda. We need time to enjoy the experience. It is mystical. It makes it even better when you see children involving themselves in it. There is so much that you said which takes us back to what we felt was soulful. But when children at this age, they speak about it, that's the aim of the school. So it's a kind of fulfillment of the aim. And as I said in the morning, we look forward to more sessions from you. We'll keep inviting.
Well, we all have such a treasure house who is Sri Aurobindo, and all that we are taking out is a little bit, and we are enjoying. And in fact, well, we want to introduce Sri Aurobindo to even all the students and children all over India and outside world. So we are actually in the process of making a film on part of Sri Aurobindo's life when he came up as a freedom fighter and set fire to the hearts of Indians. So we are in the process of making that film in a very new and innovative way. And our school, Jaipuriya School, is also part of that project. And very soon, I hope with the Mother's grace, we will be able to share one more aspect of Sri Aurobindo with all of you.
When you hear something so beautiful and 3 sessions, one after the other, and you just left speechless. I don't have anything to say except a deep, deep gratitude from my soul to Shivakumar Ji and to the students who have responded from their soul. It was just a beautiful, extremely beautiful experience for me. Thank you so much. Thank you, Shivakumar Ji, for taking out so much time. And thank you, students, for participating from your soul. Thank you.